Man, it feels like tomorrow's game is super, super important.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining us for this bonus edition, this happy hour edition of the show, Mike G of the War Report and Locked On UCF. Let's go. More on that in a little bit. But I want to talk about in a second the receivers that could pop off tomorrow, because I think if Auburn's going to win this game, they're going to have to do it through the air. But as this game gets closer and closer, and yes, Auburn's 2-5, and yes, Auburn's been really underwhelming this season. You can say the same thing about Kentucky. It does feel like tomorrow's matchup is important, Mike G, because I do think this signifies for whoever wins this game of like hope, the potential of turning things around. And on the other side of the coin of like, okay, like what else can you do this season if you are the team that loses this football game?
Yeah, for Hugh Freeze, it's about finding themes for the season that you can carry through the end of the season for your team. Yeah. Right? Like, what are we playing for here? You're 0-4 in the SEC right now. You're 2-5. Is a bowl game a realistic possibility? What is this coach telling his players? Look, Kentucky's only 3-4. If Auburn wins this game, this is a team that played Georgia to a 1-point loss, essentially, on their side. If they lose this game, they're in the same boat as Auburn is right now. But in year two, the expectation wasn't championship, but it was, hey, let's move the needle forward just a little bit more.
Yeah, it was improvement, and I don't know if that's really happened.
Yeah, statistically, yes, Auburn has improved in some ways, some very obvious ways, but you and I know the end result is all that matters. Nobody wants to be the fanciest loser, so they've got to find a way to win games. Going back to the receivers that are going to pop off. Think about Malcolm Simmons this year. As the cries grew louder to get the playmakers on the field, we started seeing more Malcolm Simmons. They clearly worked him into the game plan last week versus Missouri a little bit more, finding things he could do. Now it's Cam Coleman. People are like, why are we only seeing Cam Coleman on deep routes? And Hugh Freeze kind of said Monday, he said, well, he's running routes wrong, which is why he's not getting more opportunities in the intermediate range. I'm looking for Hugh Freeze to work Cam Coleman into that intermediate range. He's had some notable drops here over the middle this year. And he had the shoulder injury. They're claiming that it's not affecting him right now. I'm not sure that I believe that, but they've got to get him the ball. And, you've got to get your playmakers the ball here. So Keandre Lambert-Smith has been a stud this year, man. There's nothing I can say bad about how he's played football so far this year. Get Malcolm Simmons involved, but I think it's Cam Coleman in this one. He's so dynamic.
Whenever a coach this far into the season says like, hey, he's running the wrong routes or doesn't know the plays, like there is 100% a level of self-responsibility at this level of competition. No question. But when that seems to be a theme for a lot of guys, it does beg the question of like, well, why? Like, we just feel behind everywhere. We just feel a step behind at every aspect of playing the game of football. And I just don't feel like it should be that way. There's always this excuse that's valid in a vacuum, but when you can compile it to like all of these guys not knowing the playbook or running the wrong routes or, whatever that might be, it just seems like there's a lot of those, Mike. And I don't know if that should be the way that it is.
Ike said this on our show Wednesday. He said that this is not an easy offense to absorb. Hugh Freeze's offense is not an easy offense. But
didn't you guys have, like in your fireside chats, have receivers talk about how easy it was? Or am I tripping?
When Jay Fair and Coy Moore and Camden Brown in year one, they tried to simplify things.
Okay.
But they're not. It's different now. The feedback I'm getting from the players is different now.
That makes me feel better, honestly. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, it's very complicated. But you've got to run a version of your offense that these guys can run while mixing in more complicated, concepts. And so it's just not an excuse for losing games. My system is complicated. It takes time. That's not an excuse for 2-5. Mm-hmm. It might be an excuse for 4-3 right now, or you know what I mean, or maybe even 3 and 4 based on who you played. But 2-5, that's not an excuse for that. On Monday, we talked about this before we started recording. It was the first time that I've seen Hugh Freeze look defeated, Zach. Almost like, is this working? Does my system work here?
His Monday presser.
Yeah, yes, it was.
It felt different. Daryl and I said that too when we recorded after it. Yeah, it felt different.
Yeah. So, what I'm looking at here is if you've ever talked to Cam Coleman, he's a smart kid. He's a bright kid.
Yes.
And I don't think that his ability to absorb concepts is the issue here. We asked this question as well on our show. Is the problem deeper? Is there a deeper issue going on with Auburn football right now than concepts and, effort and youth? There's something else going on. Like you said, it seems widespread when it's this many guys. Look at what Ryan Williams is doing up at Alabama right now. Are you telling me that I don't?
Is that fair? Is that fair to say?
It absolutely is. He's not a smarter kid than Cam Coleman, right? They're just running, and they're not doing anything special with him, man. They're just throwing him the ball. They're just getting him the ball. That's it. They're letting him look at the catches he's making. They're not perfectly thrown passes, man. He's making circus catches out there. Give these guys more opportunity to use their athletic ability to make plays. The targets are down. The opportunities just aren't there in volume like they are for him. Now, yes, he's got a more senior quarterback, and I get that, right? But for opportunities to be down this much, for the disparity to be this wide, I think that's fair. I don't think he's that much better of a wide receiver than Cam Coleman, and I don't think that the ability to absorb system here is the reason why we're not seeing the best Cam Coleman that we can see this year.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I mean, I think Ryan Williams is special, and I don't know if that's the fair barometer of like what you should expect out of a really talented freshman wide receiver. But I think Jeremiah Smith, I mean, he's catching balls and making plays for Ohio State. I think he's probably closer to Cam Coleman. I think those two are pretty close, and then there's probably a gap, and then you get up to Ryan Williams. But still, I mean, I think you can make the same argument with what Jeremiah Smith has been able to do at Ohio State. So your point still rings true. I caught some flack for this, and Daryl and I did earlier in the week. I think it was Wednesday's edition of Locked On Auburn, where we kind of were going over targets for Cam Coleman, and I forgot the number. I think it was 6. He's gotten 6 targets inside 9 yards or fewer. Yeah. And none of them were behind the line. And so it's a lot of sending them deep. And to me, I just want the ball in his hands, and let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens in those situations.
Freeze put that on Cam. Yeah, essentially, he said if he, there are opportunities there, but he's got to run routes right. And
But Mike, if that's true, like if you believe that your best receiver or most naturally gifted receiver on this roster isn't running the right routes, then why is he on the field? Like if you believe he's not running the right routes, why is he playing? And so like that to me is kind of where I'm like, is that fully true?
Yeah. It's not. I don't think it is. Last year, all we heard was that the receivers were the problem, and it was the same thing. It was these guys aren't running the right routes, and they're not getting separation. All these things, but
it looks different. Like last year, that looked to be true. I don't know if it looks like that this year.
Yeah, I don't know if it was as true as they were trying to make it, but again, systemically,
I don't know.
Yeah, systemically, I think the same things that plagued them last year systemically are hurting. You have better talent, sure, so it looks a little better.
Yeah.
But the system has to save the players. The players cannot be called on to save the system, especially when they're this young. Right. Like, and that's where I'm leaning on Hugh Freeze to see where he needs to evolve his offense and figure out, hey, what can we do better here? He talks about coaching it better all the time. And we love accountability. As fans, we love accountability, but we got to see results too. And we're not seeing the results.
Yeah, we're not. That's why a win tomorrow is so big. It's so big. We'll see if they can pull it off. All right.
Do or die, Zach.
Feels that way.
It feels do or die. Yeah.
It feels that way. Hey, which wide receiver could pop off, help Auburn make a statement on the road in the SEC tomorrow? We jump into that next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at ZBiotics. Mike G, can you imagine waking up after a late night, maybe you had a few adult beverages, and feeling sluggish?
I can. I did that a lot in college.
Well, let me tell you about ZBiotics.
All right.
If you would have had ZBiotics pre-alcohol, you wouldn't have felt that way. You would not have felt that way. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists. PhD. You have to go to school for like 85 years to be a PhD scientist to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. So when you drink alcohol, it gets converted into toxic byproducts in the gut. It's that byproduct, not dehydration, that makes you feel groggy. So step 1, drink pre-alcohol. Step 2, drink responsibly. Have a great time. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. It's that easy. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and to get 15% off your first order when you use promo code LockedOnCollege at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. You're going to love it. zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege. Use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off your order. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, Mike G, if you could just turn $5 into $200, would you do it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's common sense, people. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that first $5 bet. Mike G, Auburn a 2.5-point dog on the road in Lexington.
What is it with these 2-point spreads, man? UCF is a 2-point favorite versus BYU this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not buying that for a second. FanDuel is begging you to take BYU for some reason, and I'm just not doing it. Or I am doing it. I'm taking BYU. And I'm also taking Kentucky. Who are you taking in Auburn Kentucky?
I'm taking Auburn.
Auburn outright or Auburn plus 2.5?
Auburn plus 2.5, baby. Let's go.
All right, let's see it. So you can check all that out at FanDuel.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. All right, Mike G, give me a receiver that could pop off. I know you just said Cam Coleman, so I'm assuming that's your answer. But I think if Auburn's going to move the ball against Kentucky, it's going to be by vertical passing. That's kind of how Kentucky's been vulnerable so far. That's what DJ Lagway for Florida was able to do last time out. I'm predicting that to be Auburn's game plan. Is Cam Coleman your answer here?
It is.
Okay.
You nailed it. The vertical passing game, Florida put 48 on Kentucky. Come on, man. There are points to be had here. Now, I know that they got a lot of praise for holding Georgia to 13 points, and but they've not gotten better as the season has gone along. They've gotten markedly worse as the season has gone along. Now, they're still a solid football team, and if you are not assignment sound defensively, they can get after you. But you can expose this defense some. For me, it comes down to is Peyton Thorne going to have time to get the ball up the field vertically to these guys? And he's been pretty good throwing the deep ball this year, man. He's hit guys in stride at times. More often than not down the field.
That hasn't been the problem, for sure.
Yeah. So the big play, and the reason why I think that big play is so important to Cam Coleman is because red zone offense has been absolutely putrid. Auburn's going to have to find points from outside the red zone in this one. I think, it may be a couple big plays. We saw last week versus Missouri, Zach, 10 points offensively. Special teams chipped in 7 points on a muff punt. But you've got to score, and you've got to find more big plays. There was one more big play there, and I don't know. It's a big play in the sense of when it would have happened, but it wasn't like a long pass. And you had Peyton Thorne throw what was a dime to Robert Lewis in the corner end zone, and it was dropped. I expect the receiver that's in that position this time to be somebody not named Robert Lewis or Sam Jackson. Get your playmakers on the field. Get your talent on the field at this point. You need plays to be made. And I think that Cam Coleman is where you go first. I think that Malcolm Simmons is where you go second. That's my answer.
So Malcolm Simmons.
Yeah, and that's that for Auburn.
Yeah. I think Malcolm Simmons is used to stretch the field against Kentucky on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
That is that's my prediction.
Deep middle.
Coleman. They both make sense.
Yeah, deep middle for Malcolm Simmons. He's dangerous over the middle. He's dangerous on the screen. He's dangerous deep. Man, he's flexible. Just get him the ball.
Yep. I'm there with you. Who do you think it could be? Let us know in the comments down below or hit us up on social media. You know where to find us. So, Mike G, thank you so much for your time. Tell folks what's going on. We got a little new action today, a little new show action.
Well, obviously check me out on the War Report.
Sure.
War Report, every social media platform. I'm still covering Auburn at a very high level. So not going to Kentucky this week. I'm gonna take it easy. But it's gonna be a fun weekend of football, and we have launched Locked On UCF. So a little Big 12 action going on over on the Locked On network there. Help us if you do me a favor, help us get to 1,000 subscribers.
Do this.
Right.
Help our guy out.
Yeah,
help our guy out.
Help us get to 1,000 subscribers as fast as we can. I think as of this morning, we were at 171 in just 7 days. And so we want to keep it going. I'm loving the camaraderie of the Locked On network. Somebody came through the comments, Zach, and they said, I think you'll find that in the Big 12, we subscribe to all the podcasts. BYU fans came through. They mobbed my comment section. It was amazing.
Yeah, BYU fans are wild.
They're crazy.
Yeah, they're crazy.
It's been fun so far, and we've got a lot of great stuff going on over there. So please go support and help us.
And if you're listening on audio, if you're strictly an audio consumer, check it out. Locked On UCF is available wherever you're listening to this show as well. So be sure to check that out. Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.